Hi guys, so it's time for the next phase of the Spring Nutrition Challenge. As you know, in week 1, all I wanted to do was just track your food. The next part of the challenge was then for you to actually start planning your breakfast and dinners. Now this next phase, we fill those gaps in and we want to complete a full week's food planning in advance. So the first thing we need to do that is to establish a calorie target. I suggest all of you have a read of my latest blog talking about calorie counting and is it worth it, and the accuracies and inaccuracies of it. It's going to give you a better idea of why we track calories and what are some of the pluses and what are some of the minuses to doing that. But the easiest way, first of all, to establish our calorie target is just to use the calculator that's included on MyFitnessPal. If you have other devices or other ways that you calculate your calorie intake, you know, maybe you have some scales or your watch or something will help you, then you can use that instead. It's just giving us a baseline to work around. And if you look at the blog, it talks about how you can adjust based on any results that you see or you don't see. So we need to be tracking results if we want to be looking at the effectiveness of our diet and if we're sticking to the calories we're looking at. I know that we're not tracking the other macros, the proteins, carbs, fats. We're not looking at hitting any numbers for that yet. I'm trying to add, with this nutrition challenge, a layer at a time. So keeping it a bit more simple, just adding layers as we go along, letting you get used to going through each phase before I add more complications into the system. So this is purely about calories. If we want to track the effectiveness of our calorie consumption, then we need body metrics. And that sounds complicated, but it's purely just 3 numbers we want to look at: weight, body fat, and the waist and hip measurements. Again, have a look. I've put this in text forms that tells you how to measure those numbers. It's important that we take those measurements at the same time each day. I always recommend first thing in the morning after a pee. Just gives you a more consistent number. If you're doing it different times of the day, we can change weight throughout the day. And for girls as well, your weight will change throughout your cycle. So to get really consistent results, we need to be doing this over 4 weeks because we need to be measuring at the same time of your cycle. But measuring at the same time of day will give us some accuracy. Just be aware that if you are female, then obviously there will be some changes that happen during your cycle. Once we've got that calorie target established, and then we've taken all our metrics, which are going to give us our way of tracking whether we're getting results or not, then we're going to start building our plan. So you've already hopefully entered in your breakfast and dinners for the last few days, and you've been getting used to putting those in advance. Now it's about adding in lunch. Use that as your major gap fill. So if your calorie target is 2,000 calories and you hit 1,200 calories of breakfast and dinner, then make lunch take up the large majority of that. I'm not a big advocate of eating multiple times a day. Again, if you've looked at any of my previous videos and entries in the blog, especially the more recent ones, I talk about why it's important to have some periods of the day where you're not eating to allow your insulin levels to drop. I don't want to complicate it today though, but yeah, have a look back at some of the archives and you should see some information about that. But yeah, try to fill up most of your calories with those 3 main meals of the day. And then if you have any gaps to fill, then fill those with some snacks. And you may find if you go over, obviously you need to shave some calories off somewhere. So looking at taking off some fats and carbs out of that to bring those calories down. With regards to once you've when you're building this plan, we're not all perfectly consistent in terms of we don't have necessarily the same day every day, although at the moment obviously we do. We're at home, so it's much easier, but we still may have days where we know we're going to be consuming more, we're celebrating, or we're going to be doing something that's going to cause us to consume more calories. If that's the case, then please put that into your plan and look at your weekly calorie consumption as an overall number and try to stay inside that number. So I don't advocate cheat days, having thousands of calories more on one day and then really cutting back on the rest. But if we're going to have, you know, a day where we're having a bottle of wine or a bottle and a half of wine or something, I don't know what you guys are going to be consuming, but if we're going that far, then you're going to need to allow for that by shaving some calories off during the other days of the week. You know, you can cut 100 calories a day off. That gives you another 600 calories to use on that extra day of the week. And obviously also, if you're out in the evening on that evening, then you can obviously shave some calories in your in the rest of that day. So have a look at that and always plan for those kind of events. Don't think that you're going to have 7 perfect days, because no one has 7 perfect days. Always think about what's going to be happening on certain days. Are there days where you have a TV show that you watch and you always eat this on that day? Either break that habit or account for that into your plan. Once you've done that and you're building your plan, start sticking to that plan. So I always say, make the plan on paper, put it in MyFitnessPal, so you've got those numbers, fill in the blanks if you need to, with snacks or just by topping up the meals slightly, and then stick to that plan throughout the week. So once you've got the plan in MyFitnessPal, obviously you need to then build a shopping list and get the shopping in that's going to hit that plan. The great thing about having the plan and then sticking to that shopping list is that hopefully you won't buy too much temptation, which is where people always go wrong, is that they fill their fridges and cupboards with temptation, and then they somehow think that they've got some magical willpower that's going to allow them to stop doing that. Effectively, if you've got temptation in the house, then willpower isn't going to stop you when you're in those moods where you're going to make bad decisions, okay? Always try and avoid it. It's why it's important, if you're doing something like this, that you have to support the other people in your household, because it is much harder. It's not impossible, obviously. So if you've got kids, then you feel like you have to kind of provide a plethora of sweet treats for them. Then you just have to, you do have to have a little bit of more willpower and make sure you don't leave yourself to a point where you are hungry, which is why these calorie targets are important, because we don't want to be going to a point where we're super, super hungry and making those bad decisions. And if we've already made our decisions on what we're going to be snacking on, what we're going to be eating each day, then there shouldn't be any bad decisions, because we shouldn't need to make any decisions, because we should already have it written down in advance. And that's really why food planning is so important, because it takes the decisions out. We've made the decisions at a time where we're not hungry. Remember I talked to you last time about not being hungry, and you're making these plans and doing a shopping list and going shopping. So make decisions when you're not hungry, make good decisions then, and that will allow you then to not have to worry about those going through the week. If you're leaving everything to chance and just think, well, I've got 2,000 calories to meet, you know, I'm just going to eat until I get to 2,000 calories that day, you're going to make some bad choices, or you're going to feel terrible because you're going to make some bad choices early in the day and you're going to starve yourself for the rest of the day. So plan, stick to that plan. If you, obviously there needs to be some flexibility there. So if if there's something that unforeseen does come up, you just have to account for that and make changes the rest of that day, the rest of that week, to account for that. And if you do have a week where you do blow out your calories, just take that into account when you're doing your body metrics check. So we're going to be running this part of the challenge for around 10 days. Stick to it for that time. Check your metrics at the start, check the metrics at the end, and hopefully we'll see some results. And if we don't, you can look at making some amendments on that. And that's where you look at my blog and you can see I talk about how you would change your calories and why looking at the calories calculators you get on these pieces of software are just a way of giving you a rough guide. They're not an exact science. Those of you that aren't looking to change your body composition, well, don't think that calorie counting is irrelevant. It's really important that you have the correct amount of energy throughout each day so you can get the best performance out of yourself each day. And that becomes even more important when we start adding in more macros into the diet. Then those of you that are eating for performance and rather than just eating for body composition change, it becomes much more important when those extra macros come into play. So don't just think, oh, if I'm not trying to change shape, it doesn't matter to me, I can just eat what I like and hope it's all fine. Please make sure you're also keeping track of your nutrition. It's a really important way to get the most out of your performance. Okay, so that's the next phase of the challenge. Good luck, guys. Hope you're enjoying it. Hope you're making the most of it and taking advantage of The great tools on MyFitnessPal, I don't advertise it, it's just I find it really useful for people to do. It gives you a much better understanding of your diet and nutrition. Any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. This is what I'm here for. I want to see all of us get results and see changes. That's kind of the purpose of CrossFit Chiltern as a business. I want to be more results driven. So if you have questions, if you're unsure about anything, and you just want a little bit of help with what you're doing with this challenge, then please drop me a message and I'll be happy to give you some advice. Good luck, guys. Enjoy the rest of your day.